Hello everyone, welcome to July 15 C Cluster Lifecycle sub-project meeting, Cluster API. We have a lightish agenda today. I added some things here. I'm going to put the meeting notes link into chat. If you want to add your name to the attending list, feel free to do so. Is anybody here new and would like to introduce themselves? Feel free to unmute and say hi.
Hello, I'm new here. This is Xuan.
Hi, Shwan, welcome.
Hey.
Hi. Anyone else would like to say hi before we get into topics? Well, I'll start with the PSA, and then if anybody else wants to say hi, feel free to unmute or stop me. The first one that I have on as a PSA is that 037 has been released. If you look at the release notes, they're actually quite extensive. This is a huge milestone for the project. Very proud of the work that this community has been doing for a month and a half or so. There's a lot of new features, so if you're new to the project, feel free to dig into our documentation. The book should be up to date in terms of a quick start, so that's a good way to start. And yeah, this is already using 037, given that it auto updates every time a new PR merges in. But yeah, give it a try, and if you find any bugs, which I'm sure there's going to be a few, definitely file an issue so that we can get those fixed. Huge shout out to everyone involved in this release. Again, thank you, and now we'll look forward. One PSA in this PSA is that ClusterCuddle becomes required with this release with Cluster API. It was required before for most of the infrastructure providers because they already had environment variables in the published components, and now Cluster API is also publishing components with environment variables in. So you would have to update your ClusterCuddle to the latest version to make use to install 037. So I added this PSA here. We're tracking also other things, like make sure that ClusterCuddle can check if there's a new version available so that users update and improves the user experience there as well. Any questions, comments, concerns on 037 or the ClusterCuddle requirement?
Yeah, I have one. I can't raise my hand. Sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to say you can also use AMP subs. Don't have to use ClusterCuddle. So for providers in your Makefiles and for development purposes to install the CAPI components, as long as you use AMP subs, it should be fine. You don't need ClusterCuddle.
Yep. Gab is pointing out that Tilt is failing now, and that's actually correct. And there's already an issue open to fix it. Andy?
I was just going to say there's an issue about it.
All right, perfect. Awesome. Any other question on 037? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, the next item is that Alpha 4 planning is probably going to start in 2 or 3 weeks from now. I know a few of us, from VMware side, are taking a few days off here and there. So it's definitely some wind down time, given the huge release that we had. But if you have anything that you would like to see in terms of features, improvements, if you have any ideas, we definitely need a lot of help on the user experience side of things. Definitely feel free to open an issue, and we'll triage them once we go into planning. The last PSA / shout out is that the PR to promote Cecile to Mantirna has been merged. So congrats, there has been a lot of plus ones on that PR, and very well deserved. So thank you, Cecile, for everything you have been doing in the community, and congrats again.
Thanks.
right. So if there is no demos today, I added these here. We don't have to talk about it. I just wanted to give you all the kind of like a status report that we have 4 more proposal open. There is the autoscaler, infrastructure capabilities, machine deletion hooks, external remediation. This one already has code already in place. External remediation needs a little bit more review. Again, I apologize that if we have been slow, but we'll definitely get to it like either this week or next week. Andy?
I'm reviewing the external remediation proposal today, just FYI.
Thank you. So yeah, like if you have time, feel free to take a look at these proposals and so we can push them forward. Go ahead, Cecile.
What's the status on the autoscaler proposal? Because I know it was opened a while ago before the integration started. So is that still something we're trying to get in? Has it been updated to match the current state or?
Can anyone here speak to that? I'm not totally sure, to be honest.
So the link proposal is talking about adding additional support to the autoscaler integration to support scaling from 0. So it's an additional capability beyond the initial integration.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, I think we can probably get some eyes on these in the next couple of days and next week, so we can push all of them forward. Are there any other questions, comments, concerns, opinions on these? All right, quite a bunch today, so let's go to discussion topics. Fabrizio, take it away.
Thank you, Vincent. So I'm working on an upgrade on update on our testing guideline and convention for Cluster API, and this is a follow-up of some recent problem that we had on test, some flakes, and also facing some fake client limitation that are documented in an issue. So I started to update the document, and I'm looking forward with the goal to get a standardization of how we write tests and to address the problem that we highlight. And I'm looking forward from community feedback about these proposed guidelines.
Lauren?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I just read that proposal this morning. Overall, I'm kind of +1 for it. I noticed that currently we're using mtest primarily in our Ginkgo suites, but from my understanding, we are sort of asking to lean towards using mtest also for unit tests as well. I wonder if we have any places in Cluster API where we've already done that. I haven't found any yet. But I'm currently working on a unit test where I'm, I guess, start off spiking mtest for unit tests, not sort of integration tests.
I have a prototype locally. I have a PR. I can push it, so you can take a look. But before sending the PR for changing it, I prefer to see how the discussion goes on the PR.
That's fine. Thanks.
Just to give a little bit more context to this group, so apart from the flakes and etc., like there have been 2 complaints that I've heard from the wild, which is one, Ginkgo test, it's really hard to develop them but also debug them. So you can just like, for example, run in an editor like on an IDE like a single test, for example, if you want to. You can do that from the command line doing regular expressions. And so the developer experience is kind of like whatever today. And the other thing is that fake client has a lot of limitations, and we discussed this at the controller runtime meeting. There is some folks that would like to contribute to it, but given that we rely on it a lot, and it actually doesn't behave properly most of the time, especially with regards to patching and things like that. Fabrizio is proposing kind of pretty much say, let's just use mtest everywhere, which it like actually behaves correctly. Did I summarize more or less the problem, Fabrizio?
Yeah, thank you. It's basically fake test is not a real Kubernetes server, and this expose us to some risks. And due to the latest change in v3.7, basically the probability to get it wrong is growing.
Yeah, I agree. There's also some places I've seen in the code base where our fake client is actually like our own fake client with like maps and other sort of convolutions, and it's not the controller runtime fake client. So it'd be really nice to kind of standardize on a consistent behavior. So.
Cecile, I saw you were muted. Would you want to say something? Okay, never mind. Any other questions, comments, concerns for Fabrizio on the testing? All right, let's proceed. Andy?
Thanks, Vince. I wanted to bring this to everybody's attention. There's an issue that's been open for a while about letting all or more of the KCP spec be mutable. And we've got some folks who are interested in being able to change things like the flags for the various control plane components, maybe some of the volumes and volume mounts. So if you all have any use cases around doing rolling updates where you want to be able to change really anything that is in the kubeadm config spec or the KCP spec, just let us know, add some comments on this issue, and we're going to look into prioritizing this sometime in the next few weeks or months. So the more use cases we have, the better.
Any questions for Andy? Or comments? All right, so if there is anything else, we will just go into issue triage now. See, there's a few with no milestone. Make tilt to work with MSUS substitute variables. Yes, we should probably do this soon.
Sorry, Lindsay, if I can add a note for Gab, there is a workaround to get it tilt working now.
Yeah, I saw that. Thanks.
Do you want to add that to the issue?
It is documented on the issue.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna print the 03x in here. All right, support moving custom resources in ClusterCuddle. I think there is already a PR open for this, so and we discussed this a little bit last week. And for folks that don't know, like what this is actually solving is Talos folks are installing like other components or CRDs alongside like Cluster API with ClusterCuddle. But during move, ClusterCuddle doesn't look at those components. And so they're trying to add a label so they like any object that is actually labeled, CRD that's labeled, gets moved as well when you do ClusterCuddle move. And yeah, Andy?
Just one more use case. There's some folks who are trying to get an external controller written that can do IP address management and assignment for like static IPs for CAPV. And there wouldn't be any major changes to CAPV other than supporting the statically assigned IPs, but there would be custom resources that this other controller is creating and maintaining that go along with Cluster API and would need to be moved as well. So another example of a use case.
Thank you. This is already assigned, so I'm just gonna do this, and also lifecycle active, given that there is a PR open. What else do we have? Flavor tokens, flavor nodes. I looked at this briefly. I also, yeah, thanks Andy for asking for more user stories. It's a little confused what they're trying to do. So for now, I'm just gonna put it into next and say, awaiting more evidence here. Unless this person's on the call, I don't think so. No. Yeah. Let's wait for more use cases here. Allow Docker machine template to be mutable. So there is already a PR out. The only thing that I pointed out here is that, so template in general have been immutable for quite a while. We're trying to relax that a little bit to say you can actually mutate the template, and 3283 actually covers like some of this. The problem with like relaxing the whole requirement is that like if you expect like a then for, in this case, like CAPD to make changes on it, like then code has to be in place to react on those changes. And I don't think that that is the case today. Fabrizio?
I'm discussing, I'm a comment. There are two issues about the same problem. And in my opinion, there is something underlying which should be clarified, because basically the user is using custom image to use CAPD, which is something that was never necessary before. And I want to understand why he's doing this, and what is the underlying need.
Makes sense. I think, yeah, let's put in awaiting more evidence in next. There was a reply to that. So, yeah, but oh, go ahead. Yeah, you're here.
Sorry,
so.
This is Arvinder. I found the issue. Actually, there's a separate issue. You keep going through that list that you were looking at earlier. The need is primarily related to kind, the underlying tool that we use for CAPD. But here, yeah, I mean, like I said in the comment there, is that it's perfectly fine if, you know, we wanted to make this mutable, but at the same time require that, for example, providers like CAPD or MetalCube or anyone else then go ahead and actually take the changes to the template and apply them to the existing machines. Or we can leave that up to the user to do if that is desirable. And that mechanism does not exist today in CAPD. It would need to be implemented.
Got it. So with that information, like, so initially 3283 was open, given that we added now the information on each machine where it was cloned from. So with that information, like CAPD can be modified to reconcile those changes. And the ask there was that like the changes would be reconciled and the user doesn't need to have more intervention other than changing the spec field that you would want. But I guess like I don't have like enough experience on custom image, if that could be an in-place upgrade, an in-place change, because if it isn't, then the experience should be kept the same, as in like you should create a new template and attach it to a machine set, if that makes sense, if you have to replace that machine.
Right. So I think that's the existing model that you just said there, right? That's what's been documented, is that if you want to change the image in the template, you would basically create a brand new template and patch KCP or the machine deployment accordingly.
Yeah.
Here, I guess the goal was, is that really necessary, that additional step? Could we be more flexible? But yeah, I mean, that's the existing model. That's fine too.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That's a good question to ask. That is a good question. It's like, is it necessary anymore? Like if we have upgrade after, although we only have that on KCP, I guess. Jason or Andy, do you remember like why, I guess now I'm forgetting, at the time we put everything as immutable and we didn't want to change the template, but not change anything in the...
It was because there was like no way to really know, like if we wanted to support deployment rollbacks on machine deployments, if everything is always pointing to the same template, which becomes mutable, there's no way to get back to where you were before configuration wise.
Yes, thank you.
I mean, if I understand this correctly, the objective still is to support some level of mutation on the template, but it would be left to the providers to implement appropriate reconciliation of the machines, the existing machines.
Yeah, so I would say like the generic rule we've documented this is like, if you can make that change in place, then you can make the template immutable. One example is in AWS, you have security groups, which I believe that's why like Andrew raised this issue the first time. And you can add new security groups or remove them on the fly without affecting, hopefully affecting anything, security group syntax. So if you can make changes like that in the infrastructure provider, then yes. If you have to roll out a new machine, we want to, as Andy mentioned, like we want to keep the rollback mechanism in case something goes wrong.
Got it. Okay.
I'll leave it like this for now, and we can follow up there for later. All right, so document CAPD usage and upgrade requirements. This is one other of yours, Fabrizio or Arvin?
This is the same issue, but it is like documenting how to proceed.
I think this issue is actually not quite the same. So I was actually working with CAPD a little bit recently. And as I've said in that comment there, is that if you look at the kind release documentation, for a particular version of Kubernetes, they require that you use an exact node image with a particular digest. And if you don't do that, what I noticed, at least when I was working on it, is at least a very flaky behavior. So you might upgrade from, let's say, version 1.16 to 17, and the upgrades wouldn't work. But however you do an upgrade from 17 to 18, it did work. And also depends on it's a function of what version of kind you're using. If you're using kind version 0.7 versus 0.8, things might work. And if you're not using it, things might not work. But that's kind of what I wanted to point out here, is that if we could document something like this, somebody who comes along and does something what I was doing is going to probably run into the same issue.
That makes sense. Fabrizio?
I want only to add that we are aware of the difference between kind 07 and 08, but these differences are relevant only for the management cluster that you actually create with kind, while we are not aware of problems related to the version of kind or of the kind image when you create something using CapD. CapD internally, CapD only relies on kind image for having an image that contains all the binary, but internally it does not use kind. So it should be, it should not be affected by kind difference. So if there are problems, I would like to investigate and get them fixed in CapD instead of forcing user to specify a kind image with a SHA, which is not a good user experience.
Okay, so what I can do is I can file a separate bug maybe and actually document the problem that I'm seeing. And then we can probably take a look at that and see if in fact this is the issue.
Thank you. This will be helpful for me.
Yep, thank you.
I tagged it like this because it seems like it needs more investigation, but yeah, definitely let's see if this is something we need to fix within this milestone. We can get the docs out sooner than a new release, but yeah, that should be doable. The last one, force a regeneration of kubeconfig of a workload cluster. Jason, I saw that you commented on it. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that, you know, all it would take today is just to delete the kubeconfig to have it regenerate. But I was a little more concerned with their user story of wanting to do this for security reasons, which I don't think there's anything that we could do to address that until we have some ability to rotate certificate authorities.
Got it. I'm not sure how I should triage this. Any opinions?
Why don't we wait for the requester to respond? So awaiting more evidence, mainly because I agree with what Jason was saying. And yes, you can delete the secret and it'll get regenerated, or at least that worked in the alpha 2 days. Might be worth re-verifying.
All right, thank you. And that was the last issue. It's great. Any other last minute topic? Otherwise, you all get 30 minutes back. All right, well, thank you all, and have a great week. See ya.